It was on a dreary night of November that I beheld the accomplishment of my toils. With an anxiety that almost amounted to agony, I collected the instruments of life around me, that I might infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet. Imagine his horror when, unprepared as he was for such a sight, he beheld as he advanced towards the grave not a wolf, but his wife, in her nightdress, on her hands and knees, crouching by the body of my sister, and tearing off large pieces of the flesh, and devouring them with the avidity of a wolf. My good friend, when I have received your letter, I am already coming to you. By good fortune, I can leave just at once, without wrong to any of those who have trusted me. Were fortune other, then it were bad for those who have trusted, for I come to my friend when he called me to aid those he holds dear. Tell your friend that when that time you sucked from my wound so swiftly the poison of gangrene from that knife that our other friends, too nervous, let slip, you did more for him when he wants my aids, and you called for them than all his great fortune could do. But it is pleasure added to do for him, your friend. It is to you I have come. Have them rooms for me at the Great Eastern Hotel, so that I may be near to hand, and please it so arrange that we may see the young lady not too late on tomorrow, for it is likely that I may have to return here that night. But if need be, I shall come again in 3 days, and stay longer if I must. Till then, goodbye, my friend John. Van Helsing. Welcome to A Neat Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. I'm your host, Jasmine Garcia, and joining me today are...
Hi, it's River, and I've decided that I'm deleting all the dating apps and finding love the old-fashioned way, being sent on a vengeance quest to kill Dracula.
My name is Callie, and if you didn't know it, I am actually super gay, and I just forget sometimes. Do you have a sword by chance?
Wanted by the Knights of the Holy Order for the murder of 12 men, 6 women, 4 children, 3 goats, and a rather nasty massacre of poultry, Justin Daly.
And I'm Ellie McConaughey, and I too would like to live the dream that Elena Anya is living in this movie, hitting on Kate Beckinsale and getting paid for it.
Welcome to the grand finale of Monster Month 2, The Dead Are Rising.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! Oh, in the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God! Oh.
Death is but the doorway to new life. We live today, we shall live again.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
In many forms will we return. With our Monster Mash episode.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise,
He did the mash!
he did the monster mash.
The monster mash!
Where I will go back into my sarcophagus until next October afterwards.
No, we still need you to help us defeat Dracula and Dracula Weekly. No.
You also
Fine,
You'll also have to appear in my Thelma and Louise episode in like 3 days.
And my
Okay,
Planet Cool episode.
Okay, so after all of those things, I'm going into my sarcophagus until next October.
Sure.
My, third note in is, we are truly doing a Monster Mash, huh?
Yeah, Monster Mash is what I call it when we and the lady vampire and the werewolf get, and I'm just dragged off stage by a vaudeville book.
And what did we choose for our Monster Mash episode? Why, what else are we supposed to choose except 2004's Van Helsing?
Greetings, I am IER 60, Star Wars Retelling Connections. Point of intersection found. This is a degree 4. Misty Rojas played Sinibian bartender / savior / pirate coast lane / Quill performance artist / frog lady and the man DeLorean. Debbie Lee Carrington did for Van Helsing and was Ruma Ewok in Return of the Jedi and Luigi in the Ewok Adventure. Uncredited amendments found. For a full list, check out the episode entry at ineachretelling.tumblr.com/sibling blogs.
I'm so gay.
We are
Alright,
2 for 2 for choosing movies that turned 20 this year.
Yeah.
I am getting to claim old knowledge of this film. I saw this film in the theaters on its initial release, so bunch of fucking whippersnappers.
I was like 12 or 13. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
I was 4.
Fuck you!
Actually, when specifically did this movie come out?
Oh, come on! Must we get into technicals?
Yes.
So this is
No!
No, we're done. We're done talking about River's Edge. This is the Stephen Sommers late of The Mummy and The Mummy Returns and a bunch of movies that no one besides me cares about. I still like Deep Rising, and you can't stop me. Look, much like this movie, is it a good movie? No. Is it an entertaining movie? Oh, yes.
Insert the Roger Ebert review.
I have a weakness for movies like this. I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you it's a great movie, but it brought back fond memories of Anaconda and Congo and movies like that you're almost ashamed to admit you like, but you did like it, and I like this one.
So I have 2 notes about that. First off is, Jazz, I don't know if you're aware of this. I assume you are, but I'm going to say it anyway. But another Stephen Sommers movie is also eligible for this podcast, the 90s live-action adaptation of The Jungle Book, where Mowgli is sexy.
Oh, yes.
And second, I actually think that The Mummy compares a really good doorway to actually talk about my issue with this film on like a material level.
Which mummy?
Both of them.
The good one. The 90s one.
The one that turned me bisexual.
The Great Bisexual Crisis of '99. Got it.
I mean, Stephen Sommers.
The X-Files.
I mean, this movie proves that Stephen Sommers is like the director patron saint of bisexual awakenings. Anyway, we are getting so off the format.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Bestie, you got 2 ADHD folks, and then you have Ellie.
I know. I love you all.
I've got both the Riz and the ADHD, so...
I love you all very much. But anyway, well, since there are so many monsters that are covered on this, you know what? Fuck it. Since this is a love letter to the Universal Monsters, what is everyone's connection to the Universal Monsters in general?
I don't have one.
You could also go by whatever they're based on too. It's fine.
Well, so I've talked about my vampire connection. Is that in that I have the book sitting on my shelf and I have not read it, and I have not read Frankenstein, and I have not. There's no real werewolf book because werewolves are kind of a mythological bit more than like specific Dracula and Frankenstein, which are both like novels. Werewolves are more of a cultural thing and a folkloric thing. There are multiple myths and mythos, and depends on who you talk to, depends on what you deal with. Anyway, insert OSP's video about werewolves here.
Pointing out that the Universal Monsters movie, The Wolfman, is actually responsible for kind of making up or codifying most of the shit we associate with werewolves.
Yeah, it is a BC AD point.
It's actually a Texas-specific werewolf myth. Fun fact, the more you know.
But, like, here's the thing. I'm a weenie baby fraidy cat, so horror movies in general are kind of a non-starter for me unless somebody scans it for me first and tells me that it's fine, actually. I have, however, been to both the Sci-Fi Diner and Disney World, which is like a spiritual cousin to the old Universal Monster restaurant that was in Universal Florida. I think they took it out when they last did their rebrands or their redo, but that was like themed. And the one time I went to Universal, I did lunch in there, and it was kind of cool because I am a sucker for theme park theming, actually. And honestly, Universal needs more of it.
Epic is coming.
I don't give a shit about Epic Universe. I need everyone on Twitter to shut the fuck up about Epic Universe.
Oh,
I
God.
cannot give a shit about Epic Universe because it's 2 corporate entities taking the piss out of each other. Like, you're all fucking going to both. Stop pretending like you're gonna pick a side. Fucking,
Well, of course not.
like,
I'm
nobody
not picking a side, but
gives a shit.
you could do monster
also-
makeup.
I'm also never going to go. My parents are diehard Disney people. Theoretically, they keep teasing we're going to Universal one year, and we never make it. because driving in Florida is a mistake.
You can cut out driving in there.
Florida is a mistake, yes.
Dracula
podcast
Steakhouse, though. Dracula Steakhouse.
I'll wait till it's actually fucking open, and then I will get hyped about it. Because right now, all we've got is press hype. No one's been physically there yet. Nothing has allowed it sort itself. It's like first week bugs or whatever. Like, I am not succumbing to hype. We cannot succumb to hype. Hype is the dream killer. So, like, for me, I keep meaning to watch the monster movies because I feel like a bad film major if I haven't seen at least one of them. I have seen Nosferatu. It's not a Universal monster movie, but it is a reason why piracy is good, actually. Shout out to that movie for real. I keep meaning to watch at least, like, maybe the Hammer horrors of Dracula or the classics and, like, Bela Lugosi's Dracula or whatever. I just don't have time. There's so many other things I gotta watch, man. There's a reason that my Letterboxd bio is a film major with a 2-watch list longer than a watched list.
Somewhat recently, I started trying to like watch them all because I haven't done that specifically. I've seen a lot of the different remakes, like I've seen the Bram Stoker Dracula one. I've done the 99 Mummy films, yada yada. So like, but I've never seen like, you know, the original Frankenstein. I've never seen the original Dracula. So I've been going through those, but more importantly, my connection to this film was as a film that is probably the most 2004 film of all time. I was the specific demographic, and you know what? They hit it.
Are you also another person who saw this movie in theaters, Justin?
I don't have a specific memory of seeing it in theaters, but I do own the DVD, and it's rather worn out, let's say.
God love you, Justin.
Hell yeah.
So I, as indicated earlier, was like early high school when this movie hit theaters. I'd already seen The Mummy, and I was at that point like a burgeoning film nerd. And in particular, and people forget this because like the horror scene of the 2000s got so totally dominated by the 1, 2, 3 knockout of Saw, Hostel, and the Texas Chainsaw remake. But like the 2000s were a good decade for werewolf movies. You know, we had Ginger Snaps, we had this, we had Dog Soldiers rips, don't at me. We had Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is not really a werewolf movie, but you know, it's Jason. So I was a big fan of the Universal monsters. I was like, you know, kind of Godzilla kid growing up, graduated to like weirdo horror as I got older. I am, as I think no one in this podcast or listening to it will be surprised to find out, I'm a big fan of Carmilla. I like Dracula just fine. I like the Wolfman just fine. My entry point into like vampire monster shit is usually My Girl Carm.
I will point out, Ellie, technically, while they never out and out adapted Carmilla in the Universal Monsters movies, because, you know,
A crime.
God forbid we acknowledge the original lesbian vampire, they were heavily inspired by it when they made Dracula's Daughter, which in my humble opinion is the best Universal monster movie.
Maria!
That movie does in fact rip pretty hard, but I'm not going to lie to you, my Carmilla fandom very quickly led me to digging up weirdo, old, obscure Italian horror movies, which led me into a protracted Dario Argento phase. No, I'm not ashamed.
Oh, I guess I'm gonna have to have you on when we eventually cover the Dario Argento Phantom, huh?
We can just not.
Look, Dario Argento rules. I'm not bending on that.
Ooh.
Suspiria rocks.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Moving on.
I don't know anything.
My obsession with Carmilla did lead me to some deeply odd places.
Jazz, you're gonna beat me over the head with the broom here.
No, I'm not.
You
'cause
know
I
what's-
knew what I was getting into.
My connection to the Universal Monsters has River's Face.
At this point, they're just gonna have to start paying you guys as part of their street team. Because otherwise, the promotion levels
are ridiculous.
I think at this point you can fully cut a trailer for that pod solely from excerpts from this pod, and I mean that with so much love and sincerity. I am so glad that you have found something that has brought you this much joy, but I do think that this much work should not go unpaid.
You are worse than me and Dorley, Callie. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Who wants to tell them that I send them money?
Oh, God.
They should send you money.
They should send you money. Listen, there is a certain point where fan labor should start being like monetized because again, the culture that we are surrounded by is built on the bedroom floor of teenage girls directly communicating with the CEOs in boardrooms, and that system is flawed and fucked.
Besides the podcast that we constantly talk about on this here podcast, which is ridiculous, is there any connection to these monsters that you have?
Hang on. I'm thinking. Hang on. Hold tight. Hold the phone, please. I read Frankenstein in high school. Hang on. I know that much. I read Frankenstein.
You see Shape of Water?
Nope.
I have seen Shape of Water. Sometimes a family is a gill man, a mute woman, a gay man, an ex-communist, a black janitor, and a fish man.
Hang on. I'm thinking.
Although Gilman does not get any representation in this movie. Travesty.
He was apparently going to, and then got cut for time.
I mean, like,
I've seen Teen Wolf and I've seen The Vampire Diaries. That is my other connection to monsters. And by that I mean the MTV series Teen Wolf.
One of the things that strikes me about it in retrospect is like they talked about how this was going to be this huge ass franchise. They were very confident this was going to be a franchise. It got an animated
I
series,
want
it got
12 of these suckers, and I want the 5th movie to inevitably be the one where they all go rogue because the evil Catholic Church monster hunting organization is so very obviously evil that they have to go rogue against the agency. Please!
like in retrospect is like, okay, so you've done one movie. You've blown Frankenstein, you've blown the Wolfman, you've done with Dracula, you've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde all in one movie. Where are you going to go for your next movie? For the comic, they were already digging out fucking Dr. Moreau.
Like, Ellie makes a really good point. It's just like, this was kind of the first attempt at them desperately trying to reboot the Universal monsters into the modern era.
I'm wearing the shirt of the other attempt.
There was multiple attempts. There was this, and then there was the 2010 Wolfman, which I will go to bat for. I will go to bat for that fucking movie. You can't stop me.
I don't think it's a good movie, but I think it's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of a slasher movie in that, like, am I really engaged with the plot or the characters? Not really. But hey, Rick Baker's doing the fucking special effects. That Wolfman looks great.
Yes.
That dude just got ripped in half. Okay, I'm here. I'm good. That can last me 90 minutes.
Fair. Listen, I actually think Joe Johnston does these kind of period pieces that kind of have the tone of their era while still kind of having a modern slant fairly well.
I quite literally wrote a paper about it.
I've been like sitting on this since we started talking about this. I sort of like alluded to it a minute ago. What I think that Stephen Sommers was a good pick for like trying to do this. He's got the right tone. And the real problem with this movie, when you actually sit down and watch it, is like, you know that scene, like I don't know, like half an hour into The Mummy where they're all at the pyramid and they kind of like got there and they're hanging out, or how not pyramid, and they're like, have a conversation. We learn a little bit more about Rick. We learn a little more about Evie. None of that shit. I am
a librarian.
Exactly. This movie is action scene exposition, action scene exposition, action scene exposition, credits.
That's so valid. And also no Rachel Weisz.
No Rachel Weisz.
Who, yeah, listen, I love Kate Beckinsale in this movie for many reasons, but she's no Rachel Weisz in terms of acting.
Rip to Anna, she deserved a female writer.
Yeah, too.
Truly.
Anna was one of those characters who's kind of like formative to me, and Kate Beckinsale has been playing variants on this character her entire career.
Yeah.
I don't mean that as a slam. Like, that's fine. This was kind of like the tail end of Hollywood trying to make Kate Beckinsale happen as a name. I think she's a good actress in the right role. I think she kind of got saddled with some very bad scripts, this and Pearl Harbor, notably.
Oh, God.
What kind of like hits is like, there's all these hints that, like, Anna is going to be a more interesting version of this character. Like, I
that
have
she
in
has
my
depth,
notes,
yeah.
I have in my notes, I really like the beat where she does like the action cool girl flip off the roof and immediately smacks right hard into a tree.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting character if she's like trying to be the action badass cool girl, but because she wasn't ever like prepared for this because her brother just ate shit 5 minutes into the movie, that would be something interesting. But again, like Van Helsing and Anna and all of the characters, honestly, I think the reason why the Dracula and the wives stick out to people in their memory so much is they're the most fleshed out characters.
I was gonna say, although I do want to kind of circle back to their attempts to redo the Universal Monster thing, because like it just seems like every single time something goes wrong here. Van Helsing, horrible reputation, and basically every criticism you ever hear about it is indeed correct. The Wolfman just did not hit. I just think we weren't ready for that. I feel like if that came out today, we might have something there. Obviously, The Mummy, we've gone over that at length. Now with Lee Wannell having knocked it out of the park with The Invisible Man, and now we got that Wolfman trailer that came out. That does look awesome. I think there's real potential here.
You missed Dracula Untold, by the way.
I did miss Dracula Untold. You're so right. But should tell you everything you need to know, right?
Also, you're missing the Frankenstein that Fassbender was in.
Was it Fassbender? I thought that was Aaron.
That was Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah, that was Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
That tells us how much we care.
Those were trying to tie into each other. A lot of that got stripped out in post, from what I'm given to understand, because they realized, like, as often happens, you know, they sit down to watch the movie, like, oh shit, we made a real stinker here, and then they cut the movie down to the bone to try to get as many showings in per day as they can.
Didn't help.
To make as much money as they can.
That never seems to actually work.
So, like, I think we're coming to the first, like, thematic ideal before we even get into the movie. I think the Universal monster movies are quickly becoming like how we treat the Robin Hood mythos, which is that there should be no set story told with them. They are much more fun and much more creative when they are a grab bag of characters and cliches that you can sort of shake out every couple of years and play with like action figures. Like, I think the joy that y'all are getting out of that Dark Universe pod is that they're not strictly doing retellings of the stories in which these characters are based in, and are more just taking the tropes and the thematics and the characters and playing around with them like action figures. Yeah. It is the all character, no plot. And I think what becomes the problem is not specifically for your pod, but like in general, these characters are quickly becoming all character, no plot. The reason that, again, no real straight adaptation of Dracula exists because Dracula is an epistolary novel that really comes in the slow burn of the reveal, and the review is like the breakdown is 6 hours long, tens of podcast episodes, and several emails from your friend Jonathan Harker. So like, these characters quickly becoming just like sort of a grab bag that you pull out and you play with and you fiddle around with and you stick in kids' movies. Like, that is, I think, why the Hotel Transylvania movie is actually kind of the best Monster Mash movie, is because it takes like these archetypes and like plays with what it would actually mean to have them interacting with each other and the fun that you can get from having all of these different mythoses interact with one another. And as much as like, as my subtitle implies, the monsterfucker proponent that I am, that like wanting to bang monsters, there also has to be a corner for the monster slayer genre. Like, I have seen a couple of episodes of Buffy in my time. I have seen more Supernatural than I would like to admit in public. And I think that's like why the thing that grabbed me the most about this Van Helsing movie was the minute he was like, Holy Night Order, I said, oh fuck yeah, there's a paperwork movie somewhere in here. Which is like,
a paperwork movie!
Not the thing that anybody wants out of their action movie. But as somebody who is a chronic lore enjoyer of, I love diving into implications of lore, you cannot give a secret monster hunter organization and not immediately have my weird ass brain go, okay, but what are the rules? And that's not what this movie wants me to do, but this movie gives me just enough material for my brain to go like, all right, I'm gonna go play with this, you can have it back when I feel like it.
This movie is not without its interesting ideas, and of course, its banger monster designs.
God!
It does have banger, in every sense of the word, monster design.
Those designs slap so hard!
It's not a unique way to do it. Off the top of my head, an American Werewolf in London does
of course.
Too, but I really like the whole, like, ripping your skin off to reveal the Wolfman underneath.
Yup.
I think that's always pretty fucking fun.
Gnarly as hell.
American Werewolf in London actually kind of lands on one of the issues I think that they keep running into with trying to mash these characters together, which is that, like, okay, werewolves are typically, like, approaching, like I said with the Wolfman, they're like a slasher villain. They're a monster that hunts you and you have to fight it or run or die. Dracula is more like, you know, a stalker. Frankenstein is a tragedy.
Mhm.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that's just a guy. That's just a guy who drinks a potion and he's bad now. How
That
are we
is
gonna- these
that
are-
is Victorian repression trying to Freud its way out before Freud was a glimmer in anyone's eye.
Right. And so, like, how are you going to mash these characters together in a way that makes a cohesive whole without, like, have you noticed in all of these versions, whenever they mash these characters together, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, both the good comic and the bad movie, this movie, the 2017 Mummy, have you noticed they always have to give Hyde superpowers?
Yeah, I
Go
know.
read the book. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just a dude who's bad. He's a dude who sucks. I think he's a rapist. Is the worst he does.
Like, canonically not a rapist. He is written as a rapist in numerous adaptations, including the musical. But
Yeah, canonically that doesn't happen. I just recently read the book. That doesn't.
He's a murderer, but he's not a rapist.
in fairness, there's not enough
I
women in the original story for that to happen.
Well, he does kick a child though.
He
But
does?
that's whatever.
Listen, some days you wake up and you want to punt a kid. It happens.
Yeah, that's
no,
whatever.
they always. But yeah, the point is, they always try to make Jekyll and Hyde the Hulk, basically.
Right.
Well,
or give him a
it's the
bad
archetype.
Cockney accent.
It's your classic 5-man band, you know. Traditionally speaking, Frankenstein and or Hyde would be your strong guy. And if Frankenstein's your strong guy, then Jekyll is your smart guy. And also, like, insert the superpowered evil side. That is also a hang up. The score bangs.
Yes.
From, like, the opening note in the Universal logo, the score fucking bangs. I'm like, why is it so good?
The logo gag is top tier.
I wrote that down so many times in my notes, River. You saw that.
My note about this movie from a technical level is, hey, remember lighting? Remember when we used to, like, light things?
I wrote that too!
I was literally ranting in my own podcast Discord a couple weeks ago about how, like, man, how is it that Deadpool and Wolverine can be a $200 million blockbuster and have flatter, less interesting lighting than an episode of the X-Files that was shot in a week and a half 25 years ago? Like, this movie has really good lighting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a TikTok that I saw about this, and it's like, it's a lighting trend that's kind of going around right now, where it's like, we're going through a phase where it's like they want everything to be dark and gritty and grim.
It's the
and
realism factor.
Yeah, thank you. I guess you saw something similar.
No, it's because, like, the thing about Hollywood at the moment is Hollywood is still fighting its realism bug, because every single time we try to fight the realism bug, we get something out of it. For example, one of the times we tried to fight the realism bug, we got melodrama, which then meant we got soap operas. So, like, inevitably something is going to come out of what is happening to try and fight this current realism bug. Jury's out on what will come of it. I'm gonna blame the Oscar bait for this. I'm gonna blame the Oscar bait prestige drama for this.
Okay.
I don't have anything to source that, but I'm going to. And it's the idea that, like, to make a movie serious, or to make a movie that's realistic, or to make a movie that is grounded and has some sense of gravitas with a capital G, there needs to be nothing that would break your suspense of disbelief. And for some execs, what would break your sense of disbelief is to not believe where the light is coming from. It is coming from a sense of, like, what makes a realistic scenario if you're trying to build a realistic scene, so to speak. If two characters are sitting in a room, their only light sources can be what would be naturally occurring in the room. So, for example, I'm sitting in my living room. There's a lamp, a television, my kitchen, technically my bathroom, and my overhead light. If any light were not being provided by those sources, or you couldn't light it in such a way that would be provided from those sources, then that is a failure in realism. So that's why you see a bunch of these dark scenes where, like, you don't get any overhead lighting and the moon is not a blue spotlight, is you're getting whatever the writers or the directors are like, this is a like, take the scene from Deadpool and Wolverine around the campfire. The only light is that campfire. That's why it's lit the way it is. Like, there's probably not a real campfire there. It's probably done in post. But that is the only light source. That's why it's lit that way.
I was thinking about realistic lighting. I was thinking about interesting lighting. I was thinking about, like, you can
right,
have
but
lighting.
realistic lighting has come at the cost of interesting lighting.
You can have realistic lighting and still have it be interesting. You know, Love Lies Bleeding is a very naturalistic movie until it isn't. Go see the movie; it's very good.
Yay.
But like, they have like this one really good scene where they're just like sitting at a breakfast table eating, and the only light is the natural light from the window. But they light it in a way that's clear. You can see everything. It's warm because this is the moment where they're like connecting beyond the physical. You can have real. I don't think it's a realistic lighting thing because I feel like a lot of movies aren't actually lit that realistically. I think that it's honestly kind of a post production thing where movies, especially big budget movies, are shot and reshot so many times that you end up going with very flat, very uninteresting lighting because you don't really want to have to go recreate that if you have to reshoot half that scene 6 months from now.
And there's also lighting designers are unionized. And whatever costs, baby.
Which is a shame because has anyone ever looked cooler than Hugh Jackman standing on that building with the moon behind him? I think not.
That is such an aught scene. That is like when I think of like the DVD bin aughts movie scene, that is like immediately what comes to mind. And I say this as somebody who has a recently awakened crush on Hugh Jackman.
Listen, is it cheesy as fuck?
Yes, absolutely.
But does it look awesome? Yeah,
Correct.
also yes. Let's go back to that beautiful opening.
Oh God.
The love letter to this genre.
The minute and a half that lulls you into a false sense of security of like, no, this movie is gonna be good actually.
I like that they introduce Dracula before they introduce Van Helsing. I've said this before, the guy playing Dracula, he is doing it all the way to the hilt.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Richard Roxburgh was going for when doing whatever you would call the accent he's doing in this as Dracula, but he's doing it. An important thing about the intro of this film that I'll probably save towards the end is that this film has, I tried looking for it again, his hands. There's a thing at the end of this movie that has confounded me for 20 years. And I don't know if they just forgot to do anything about it or they did it and I just didn't know. But this is like the first time we see his hands, and I guess we'll get into it at the end of the film.
Richard Roxburgh.
He is having the time of his life.
That man never does anything halfway.
I don't know what YouTuber I'm cribbing this line from. I think it's Jenny Nicholson. But like, he is doing for vampire acting what Jeffrey Rush was doing for pirate acting in Pirates of the Caribbean. He is just like, that is a vampire's vampire, and he is like the scene where he has that like argument with his wives upside down while he walks up the wall. I love that scene. I love him. The movie should be about him.
So we're in the 2000s and we are learning what CGI can do for us. TMCR. Ask not what your movie can do for CGI, what CGI can do for your movie. And there are some scenes in which it's like, okay, that could have been better. But like 8 times out of 10, it's not actually that bad. Or if it's not so bad that you're watching the seams crack. And I think the most stunning example of not watching the seams crack is walking out of the fireplace that you've just been thrown into. That was knitting your skin back together.
That was awesome.
Cool. I don't know if you've seen this movie, River, because you say you were a horror wuss. Have you seen the 1982 film The Thing?
I have not seen The Thing. I know it by reputation.
I have. It's one of my favorites.
I'm with River.
At some point, I'm gonna like trick Jasmine into letting me talk about it on this podcast.
Is The Thing from Another World not in public domain yet?
Not yet. And unfortunately, Ellie's already using her wild card wish on Carol this December, but we'll find a way to get you another one.
We'll get it. So people compare it to its 2011 remake, and they say that the reason it looks, the remake is bad is because they use CGI instead of practical effects. Here's the thing. The CGI in that movie is actually pretty good. And let's be real about The Thing from 1982. Those effects don't look realistic. Like, you're never going to look at that dog melting halfway into the movie and think that looks like what a real dog melting would look like. The thing is, it's really well directed. It's really well shot. The lighting, everything is working with it. And so I think that, what Stephen Sommers learned on The Mummy, because this does look better than The Mummy Returns. I'm sorry, Scorpion Rock. You look like shit.
Yeah.
You can get away with effects that aren't perfect if you shoot them right. I think the black and white really helps with that because it already gives us a layer of distance from what this would look like.
Like, what I wrote in my notes here is that, like, did you know this is based on a Universal movie? let us remind you again with this giant windmill on fire.
The thing about the black and white sequence is great use of your black and white. I love a stark shadow like nobody's fucking business. And apparently at one of the lightning point flashes, you can't actually see Drax's shadow before you get the big reveal at the end of the scene. Also, apparently at one point, there are trumpets playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night music for like half a chord, which is a funny connection to my wish next year. But like the thing that stands out the most to me about this like particular blend of CGI nonsense is that there is also just enough where I'm like, you had to have built that because of how much interaction has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not at a level where we can do that yet.
Frankenstein is pretty clearly practical effects, for example.
Yeah, like I'm fairly certain that entire like last like Frankenstein contraption machine is mostly practical for the number of like stunt people we gotta figuratively hawk through it. A lot of people should have broken backs in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many scenes where I am like, oh, your back is shattered into a million pieces.
Listen. I'm gonna go back to what I've said about, I don't remember which season of Daredevil it was, but it's extremely funny to me that at one point in Daredevil, he basically says straight to, I think it's the Punisher's face, like, I don't kill people.
Oh yeah, but he hucks a guy like 3 stories off a roof, like, that guy's definitely dead.
Yeah. Like, and then in the following action scene, he, like, hooks a chain around a dude's neck, yanks him over a railing, and then has him fall head first 3 stories. I'm like, no, that dude's dead.
Yeah, Matthew Michael Murdock, my absolute beloved little dipshit. Yeah, no, I've seen that, yeah.
Unilateral rule of movies. Shit that'll kill you only kills you if the movie wants it to kill you.
I know that. But there are some action sequences where, like, the physicality is just right. You're like, ooh, that's gotta hurt.
Like when Van Helsing gets slammed into the wall by Hyde. I'm like, that would have at least broken your ribs, if not flat out punctured your lungs and heart and killed you.
Listen, this whole movie is just action movie logic. It's okay. It's fine.
I
know that.
Rule of cool.
And also, I think for me at least, Helsing probably also got souped up by the evil Catholic monster hunting guild, because let's be fucking real, this is also a predecessor to that blood hunter class.
Or let's be real, the heavy implications that he is a literal father.
We cannot get into the angel implications yet. We gotta have some structure to this.
I know.
I was a bigger fan, you talk about unrealistic, okay, yeah, he takes, like, people can take hits that you wouldn't think they can take and, walk it off. I'm a much bigger fan of his grappling hook with a range of literally miles.
The Notre Dame Cathedral just cannot catch a break, huh?
No. On the one hand, the book fan of me is really happy that we have a talking Frankenstein, but the book fan of me is also annoyed, just like, how would he have learned English already? The whole point was that he watched a whole bunch of people from a distance, and that is why he learned to be so verbose and, smart.
I mean, at one point he picked up a Bible instead of Paradise Lost, which feels like a crime, actually.
Yeah,
it does.
Mary Shelley rolling in her grave.
Dr. Frankenstein calls out for Igor, and Igor's like, yeah, you've been nice to me, but he pays me. I wrote money talks, bullshit walks.
I do like Igor in this movie. He's another dude who is just, like, absolutely doing the most.
He knows what movie he's in.
Exactly.
Yes.
I do like the...
You're going to take these two and lead them to the antidote? No, I'm not. Yes, I am.
I'm on the Brute Squad.
You are the Brute Squad.
Sort of energy. That feels very correct. Fucked up vampire teeth design.
Yes.
Fucked up vampire teeth design.
And also like
vampire teeth design.
That lightning strike that briefly reveals his monster face. I was just like,
ooh! Oh, that was good.
As people who have played with me in either Vampire the Masquerade or when I've played a Dompire in D&D will know, I don't want my vampires to have the cute little teeth. I want fucked up monster face. I want Fright Night. Give me Fright Night.
Callie is the same.
I fall into the vampire is beautiful predator motif. I am usually Castlevania needle-thin things, but really messy eating. Or when I was rewatching Supernatural the last time I rewatched it, I forgot that they put it in their gums as a second set of teeth.
Oh,
and
gnarly.
as a better way of hiding, like, they don't really have the sunlight motif as much. That's interesting. But like, fucked up vampire teeth, man. Fucked up vampire teeth.
Abigail, my boy.
Fucked up vampire designs in general.
The fact that they turn into like these weird, like werebat creatures almost, I'm just like, yeah.
The fact that the werebat creature design floats into their clothing,
right?
That does slap.
That fucks so severely.
Also, did they really make that first fight set in Notre Dame just so they could technically say they reference Hunchback?
Probably.
Really?
Probably.
God. Because why the hell else would Hyde be in Paris? God.
The other thing that kind of strikes me on a rewatch now is that, like, I mentioned this before we started, that there was, like, a trend of extremely Christian action movies, kind of like the leftovers of Constantine and Spawn. This is kind of the last dregs of that, because Anna's really only motivation is get my family into heaven.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, Van Helsing constantly saying rest in peace to any of the monsters that he kills.
And also the fact that he's directly working for a holy order based out of
Yep.
Rome.
Yep.
Literal Rome.
And also, again, Van Helsing, Handshake, Wolverine being amnesiac weapons of secret organizations, played by Hugh Jackman.
Weird two nickels there. Another weird two nickels. Moulin Rouge connections, because we got Richard Roxburgh and we got the actor who played Faramir, both who have been in Moulin Rouge. I guess they were just really big on super campy genre love letters around this time.
David Wenham. We love David Wenham. Wenham does not always have the best taste in roles, but, you know, we love to see him.
Yes.
Van Q, I love a weaponsmith. Literally, that is another one of my favorite, like, if we're doing this, like, secret order of monsterfuckery, or, like, secret order of, like, fighters to fight in a supernatural world, I love a weaponsmith. I love gadgets. Q is one of my favorite, like, 007 lore bits.
I will say, I even said, you know what? Hyde's design is really cool. Poorly rendered, but he is really fun in this.
Also probably ripping from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen's design.
Exactly.
Very clearly pulling.
What are the proportions on this man?
Wrong.
Yeah, like, that's part of the problem there.
Yeah.
Is like, and this is the problem that the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie also ran into, is that, like, that comic works to the degree that it does, and I'm not actually convinced that it 100% works.
No, it doesn't.
Because it kind of understands, like, that by a lot of modern standards, these characters aren't great. Like, one of my favorite kind of reveals over the course of the comic is that, like, you think that, like, okay, so we got the Invisible Man. He's just a guy that's invisible, and becomes very clear that he's actually a completely unstable psychopath with no regard for human life. And, like, that's a really dark character turn, and Hyde is a really dark character, and it's very hard to make that work in a PG-13 context without, like, completely neutering it, which is what kind of happened to him in both the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie and, if I'm being real, here. But he's only on screen for, like, one scene in this movie, so I can...
And then he immediately dies.
He immediately eats shit.
Poor Jekyll, we did not know thee.
I do love Chekhov's sun bomb. That
Brilliant.
is the funniest of the... Well, actually, it's the third funniest gadget that we get introduced to. I love the Gatling gun too many years too early.
The machine gun!
Yeah, the machine gun Gatling gun.
The machine gun crossbow, oh my god.
That is so funny, it loops back around to being kick-ass. That is a D&D weapon if I have ever seen one.
Steampunk Q needs a raise, my god.
I wish you a week in hell. That would be a reprieve. Okay, savage, love it.
Banger line there. This movie has some really banger action movie lines.
And also, like, technically Van Helsing did murder him, but Hyde murdered more people, like...
And also, as we learn from the request to kill Frankenstein at the end of the movie so that he cannot be used against humanity, again, if this movie had gotten its, like, sequels that it desired, we would learn by, like, movie 5 or 6 that this order is actually fucking corrupt. And we would have to do the movie where we go rogue against the enemy and are running on low to no resources.
The obvious twist, and I said this when I first saw it, we're gonna have to, like, eventually talk about the fact that I'm not even saying imply, they state outright that Van Helsing is the Archangel Gabriel.
Yeah!
He has no memory. the obvious twist in like movie 3 is that the order he's working for wiped his memories so they could make him work for them. Like that is the obvious twist.
And also that would fall back under the amnesiac weapon of a secret organization handshake with Wolverine.
Yeah, and also, like, again, I mentioned this before we started recording, but it's just bizarre to me that this is not the first Dracula adjacent thing that tried to tie Dracula lore into Christian theology, because Dracula 2000 went and made Dracula Judas Iscariot.
Could this Cardinal's accent be any more stereotypically Italian?
I know. Again, that sort of loops around to like, I buy into what this movie's level of camp is trying to be.
Oh, yeah.
What level
No,
of
I get
insanity
it.
that we are doing. Hugh Jackman doesn't know what accent he wants to be when he grows up. He somehow ends up somewhere around transatlantic, and I think that's kind of what he was going for. But this is an Australian trying to have a neutral accent, which is not possible.
I literally have in my notes, what accent does Kate Beckinsale think she's doing?
Exactly! Like, no one's accents make sense, and I think that's part of this movie's charm, is that it sort of levels out to like an, okay, I get what we're going for here. I'm gonna drop this realism. Like, this realism ball does not need to be picked up. I'm gonna go throw it away.
This period of, like, action film has, like, an archetype that I see less and less, or at least I don't notice it as much as I do from this period, and it's David Wenham's character, and what happened to the nebbish, kind of useless comic relief character in these films.
The guy in the chair.
Right, so, like, there's this guy, he's like a friar, his name will never stick in my mind, it's David Wenham.
Carl. His name is Carl.
Hell yeah.
Carl, that kills people.
Honestly, that's a little too accurate for this movie.
He's great, he's trying. And but it's this guy, it's Steve Zahn in Sahara, it's I can never remember his name, the brother in the Mummy 99 film. Jonathan. This archetype does still exist, but this specific brand of slightly shorter than the male lead, blonde, generically attractive but nebbish, useless side character. It's remarkable. It's preserved in amber. It's a trope that I associate with this specific span of time at the mid 2000s.
Jake Johnson isn't blonde, but he does still fit everything else.
Yeah. It's worth noting that Callie also loves Jonathan. Callie just likes this type of character. And much like The Mummy 2017, which almost makes this a perfect way to come full circle, it ends with our lead and his comedy best friend riding off into the sunset after facing ample amounts of tragedy, including becoming the very monster that the organization they're associated with wants to fight.
We should probably move on to, like,
yes,
the worst werewolf attack scene, which
yes,
is very over-edited. And also, Velkin, make it so that other people have silver bullets.
Right? Like, this was a bad plan.
This is a terrible plan. But that bisexual reveal, though.
Yeah.
Also, like, how was that gun not more easily found? It was literally just dropped.
Also, I love that the werewolf bleeds green.
Yeah, that's weird.
That is cool.
They specified that the vampire has venom in its veins, which, sure, bestie, why not?
I made this point at one point about the Hobbit movies and how they designed their orcs versus how Lord of the Rings designed their orcs.
Okay.
And, like, I can tell when you are designing your monster to be hot, you're designing these werewolves to be hot.
Oh, 100%.
These are 6 inches away from being furry bait. Like, come on, man.
I'd shrink that margin down to 2.
It's the same thing with the orcs in the Hobbit movies. I'm sorry, you gave that orc abs. You want people to want to fuck that orc.
Hey, Ellie, when you're gonna say shit like that, can you wait for me to put my goddamn drink down?
No, it is about the potential spit take. No, these werewolves' designs. Fuck.
Literally, apparently.
They do.
Look. I have a tweet right now talking about that, like, art from D&D recently about the Western orc art they dropped recently.
Yeah.
And my comment on the orc lady with the big axe is she single? Does she need a housewife? So this is not a glass house I'm throwing stones in.
Yeah, no, like there's a reason that this werewolf has become the certain corners of the internet's favorite gif.
It's not this werewolf. It's the Hugh Jackman wolf at the end.
Yeah. That one too. Also, when Anna's like, you know, dear God, send somebody to help us, I literally wrote the note, well, I don't know about God, but how about an Australian traveling by map?
A fallen angel, even. Also, insert that gag from the Muppets 2011 movie.
One of the best gags in that movie.
The travel montage is like actually a really good example of what I was talking about earlier, because like, you know what you could do with this travel montage? It's honestly the exact same problem the 13th Warrior had. You have a travel scene where you don't stop for a single, like, you can stop for 2 minutes, have your characters have not like exposition about what they gotta do, but like a conversation about what they think and what they feel.
Ellie, that undersells what I didn't get to mention earlier. This movie's 2 hours long.
It is 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and it feels like it's moving at a breakneck pace. This is like a whole mini-series they cut all the character beats out of and smashed into one movie.
Yeah. It reminds me of this parable, like, because, like, since this is, you know, based on Christian, blah, 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 blah. Listeners at home, please note, I'm doing finger wiggles to make a point here. There's a parable where, like, the lady's in a boat, and she's, like, she's about to drown, whatever.
Right.
And someone comes in and she's like, someone's like, I will save you. No, God will rescue me. Send somebody else. I'll save you. No, God will rescue me.
Okay, yeah,
And
God,
then
I
she-
sent you all those fucking boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
That's what it made you think of?
yes, because she's like, God, please save us. And she's like, we kill foreigners.
Huh. Okay, fair enough.
That's one of those things that like made absolutely no sense to me as like a beat. It's one of those things that I feel like has to be left over from an older draft of the screenplay. Like, we kill foreigners because they might secretly be working for Dracula, who just sends vampires to openly attack us once every so often. Like, why do we need to secretly infiltrate you? He's just attacking you.
Yeah. Also, the funniest thing about that fight sequence, yeet the cow.
That was crazy.
Like, there's a couple of beats in that fight scene that I really like. Not just Valera pretty openly trying to fuck Anna.
Anna, are the brides your exes? Because that's the energy I'm getting.
It's a weird dynamic, man. There are several beats like this in the movie, and I tend to enjoy them every time. Some of the reasons why I say this movie can't be hyper sincere is I really like David Wenham hucking the holy water at Van Helsing. One of the vans just like yoink, no.
But when Anna is doing all of her stunt work and Van Helsing is on the ground and she sits on his face.
Sure, again, Stephen Summers, patron saint of bisexual awakenings.
I think I literally wrote in that moment, I was like, all right, place your bets, people. Are we gonna let Anna do anything in this movie? Because the minute that beat happens, I'm like, I can see what's happening.
They don't have a clue.
I will admit that another problem this movie has, compared to The Mummy, which is our big comparison point, we're going to be doing this the entire episode.
The 99 Mummy listeners, the 99 one.
Anna is a lot less dynamic of a character than Rachel Weisz, not just on like a character build, but like in terms of what she does. And
she has a sword that she doesn't use against an adversary the entire fucking movie.
She
that is
never
bullshit.
But also, the camera is a lot more leering at Anna. It is much more placing Anna as an object than it ever did for Rachel Weisz in...
Rachel Weisz is treated with respect and has a character and is very, very smart.
And look, I know we're talking about 99 Mummy here, but even Annabelle Wallis got more respect than Kate Beckinsale did.
You're so right.
And I don't know
even with that scene on the plane with the leering, Annabelle Wallis still got more respect.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that would be your pick, because, you know, if I compare it to its contemporaries, you know, the Spider-Man movies are really big around now. This was probably in production in between Lord of the Rings films. Those movies do not leer at their leads.
No, that's true. They don't necessarily give them much to do, but at the very least, like, they are not blatantly sexualizing them.
Because, like, that's the thing, is that I look at Anna, and she is ready to shoulder the burden of plot agency.
Yeah, she's trying so hard.
And they try to give her plot agency. Unfortunately, she's not our main character. This isn't as bad as something like, and I'm gonna quote Assassin's Creed again, this isn't as bad as, like, Arno and Elise, where, like, Elise has the stronger stake in this game, and, like, we honestly should be following her, and the only reason we're following Arno is because it's 2011 or whatever, and we're still not ready for a completely female protagonist, even by, like, whenever Odyssey came out, even though Cassandra's the canonical, anyway, we're not, that's a different rant. Point is that, like, from a narrative standpoint, Anna does have the strongest claim to be dealing with all of this bullshit.
Yep.
And she is prepared to shoulder the burden of plot agency. But again, Ellie, like you mentioned before we started recording, if they had gone the route of, like, she's a princess to this vaguely Romani-coded...
It is specifically stated, yeah.
They dropped the peace pretty early on.
Thank God it's Blinken you missed it, because I was really concerned.
Yeah, it's on a scale of, like, 1 to fucking the bad Sherlock, the RDJ Sherlock movies. How bad is your...
Or even the original Wolfman, how bad is your...
Yeah, but, like, in this specific instance, like, if you had gone the route of, like, oh, she's a princess, she's a girl, she's not trained, like, everybody else in this, like, town seems to be mostly dudes and female farm workers. If you had gone to that route, that would have explained some of, you know, the Evie conundrum of, like, eagerness without field experience.
Yeah.
And the endless cycle of wanting field experience but not being trusted to have field experience and yada yada yada. Had that been the route they'd gone, I think you would have had a stronger character in Anna. But also, because her brother bites it so early in the goddamn movie and is given such a nothing character arc, I don't want him back. Like, I want him back because I allegedly like Anna, but I don't want him back because he's, like, an important figure. Like, I think if you had cut that travel montage in half and instead joined up with Anna and Velcor, like 20 minutes earlier, like the walk to setting Velcor up as bait, let them be siblings before dropping in that fight scene, I think you would have bought more audience goodwill with Anna's sort of headstrong, like, no, I'm going on a suicide mission, knowing it's a suicide mission. Also, this movie wants to so badly be a bodyguard and trustee relationship for these two, but neither of them get it, which is a shame, because I would fuck so hard with a Hugh Jackman being allowed to be the bodyguard figure to someone actually of his age, because he keeps sending bodyguards to children. Source, the X-Men's? Those X-Men movies sure make some choices, and I understand why they went with Rogue, but... Anyway.
You're not wrong.
Something I've always liked or thought was funny about these sort of films is the body count of this village. Like you notice it sometimes with like a Midsummer Murder, where it's just like you go to the sleepy cottage village of like 20 people, and by the end of the episode 7 people are dead, and it's like this would be the highest like murder per capita in the world. This region is incredibly fucking dangerous, and you have this like in this village, it's like, you know, it's somewhat played for laughs, but like, you know, what, upwards of 10-15 people die in this village. It's like, if they're this afraid of foreigners, like, where is everyone coming from? These people would be like
and the vampires grab like 1 or 2 people a month.
Right.
They have that like beat with the gravedigger. They're like, I think they're kind of implying that he's like a big figure around.
Yeah.
Cut that dude entirely from that movie.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
In 6 films, he would have been the big bad.
But like, I do think that there are hints that at some point in the movie's production, Anna was supposed to be like, I don't want to say try hard, like someone who is trying to fill the role of like the badass leader, but who isn't very good at it. As I said, I think before we started recording, I really like the beat of her like doing the action girl flip off the roof and smacking right into a tree.
Yeah, that could have been really funny, actually, if they had done it right.
Like, if I'm rating the characters by how much character work they get, you know, Dracula and his brides are at the top, Anna's at the fucking bottom. I know nothing about what this character wants outside of kill Drac.
Well, kill Drac and save her brother, and you know, there was this one point around when they first figured out that her brother had become a werewolf, she's yelling at Van Helsing to say that, no, we've got to try to save him. And she screams at him, do you not understand forgiveness? And I'm just like, what? What kind of English as a second language wonk was that? That was so weird. God bless Kate Beckinsale. She tried to sell that line, but...
I don't know the production of this movie, and this was not, as we've established, a very successful movie. It is an extremely long movie for an action movie. I mentioned earlier that this movie basically amounts to action beat, exposition, action beat, exposition, action beat, exposition. I feel like there's a lot of connective tissue that is just gone because test audiences didn't like it or whatever. And, you know, if your movie's 3 hours, which is where film runtimes are kind of creeping up towards in the 2000s and the post Lord of the Rings world, you can't
bring back
really
the intermission.
Bring it back.
Yeah, you can't really do more than 3 or 4 showings a day without paying your employees to stay until 1 a.m, which theater owners don't want to do.
No.
Yeah.
So this was possibly a much longer movie that got cut to the bone.
The scene also has one of my favorite tropes when it comes to monsters or other things like that, where you split the group in half and they have at least one member dead to rights. And I guess they're like psionically linked because the millisecond that Mariska is, I don't know, turning into fucking sand.
Goop monster! Goop ass monster corpse!
They immediately stop what they're doing. They have Valyria
Mariska!
dead to rights. And they just bolt. They just leave. It's like, take her? There's two of you.
Finish what you were doing.
Big Kingsman energy of stop playing with your food.
Hell, that's basically what Anna told her while she stakes her later on. It's just like, if you're going to kill someone, just kill them.
Which, honestly, correct.
I do really like the brides. As I mentioned, Elena Anya has been in a lot of movies that I really like, but also, like, I feel like they're doing kind of silent movie acting a lot of the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And I kind of fuck with it.
They're chewing the scenery, and frankly, you know what? Sad as it is, this is probably the most developed the brides ever have gotten in most Dracula adaptations, unfortunately. Like, at least they actually want something besides simping for Dracula.
Flamboyant, camp-ass vampires with capital R romantic tendencies.
Yes.
Byron would get along so well with this Dracula.
I've made the point before that, like, one of the worst things a movie can have, and I'm going to use Showgirls as my example of this. Showgirls is a movie with a lot of flaws, but its biggest flaw is that, like, Gina Gershon and to a lesser extent Kyle MacLachlan know what movie they're in and are playing it the way they need to be. Whereas the lead actress from Showgirls is doing an extremely dramatic performance that is A, completely out of her range, and B, very wrong for the material. And that's sort of the problem we're running into, because you've got Drac and the brides, and to a lesser extent Frankenstein and Igor and even Belkin are all doing like extremely camp performances. And then over here you've got Hugh Jackman doing like the smirking 2000s eye roll, too cool for the room hero, and Kate Beckinsale doing her character from Underworld. I'm not even gonna lie, it's just her character from Underworld.
They actually didn't want to give her this script because they didn't want to pigeonhole her based on her Underworld role, and her agent asked for it anyway, and she said yes.
I mean, I like Kate Beckinsale a lot. As I said, this was kind of like the final push to make Kate Beckinsale a big name. This 2004 was like this and The Aviator. Shout out to my previous episode on that. And I think they kind of just sort of like stopped. It didn't work out. She didn't really land outside of like the Underworld movies. And so they just kind of stopped doing it. She's also in the Kenneth Branagh Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes, it was one of her first roles.
Very flat performance for a very flat character.
She Hero?
Sorry, Hero.
Yeah, she's Hero.
Yeah, that tracks.
Hero deserves better, but...
You know what? Dracula is so melodramatic, and I'm kind of living for it. Actually, I'm a lot living for it.
Richard Roxburgh never plays it at any less than a 10.
Well, and he understood that assignment, and he ran with it. Someone please give this man an award for this film.
I think, didn't he get a Razzie for this, I think?
What?
Entirely possible. The Razzies are all hacks. Anyways.
We never listened to the Razzies
No,
about
of course not.
anything.
Of course not.
This man was a gift in this film. He deserved an Oscar for this film because he was so great.
It did not win a Razzie. It's won something called a Stinker Bad Movie Award. I don't know what that fucking is.
I don't want to know. That sounds like some 2000s bullshit if I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
God, the 2000s were a mean time.
It really was.
It
Why
was
were we
nominated
so
for
mean?
It was nominated for Worst Film, Worst Actress, and Worst Female Fake Accent. And Richard Roxburgh did win for Worst Male Fake Accent.
Fuck y'all.
I mean, his accent is quite...
I don't care.
Anyway, before we go any further, Justin, I would just like to apologize in advance. Let's unleash, let's face it, a good third of the reason why a good chunk of us do kind of love this movie.
If we had a nickel for every time Justin was on an episode with a bunch of women about a movie in Spooky Month where there were sapphics.
Women and non-binary, but yes.
Women with asterisks.
Women and non-binaries sipping over sapphic things. We'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird.
Hang on. I am also bisexual.
I am too!
They said sapphic.
No, but like, for my perspective, Van Helsing's sweater and leather trench coat combo doesn't not do it for me.
No, that's fair.
I mean, I'm into most of the dudes and werewolves in this movie.
I mean, yeah.
Don't look at me.
No, listen, we talked about this. Those werewolves are very fuckable.
This film has something for everyone. They have Van Helsing in leather. They have Kate Beckinsale just being Kate Beckinsale. They have 3 women in like one of those. I don't know. Are they Turkish? Like, are they belly dancers? Like, what are they wearing?
I don't know, but it forms into their wings like super cool.
And it's really
super cool.
It is, and it's also hot.
You have the the raw animal magnetism of Dracula. The
and his gay ass earring.
Yeah.
Also, Kate Beckinsale's earrings. I want those. Can someone find those for me, please?
I will say, werewolves, yes. Van Helsing and Dracula, yes. As someone who is currently designing her Carmilla quote tattoo, those brides were formative. If any of you want to see Elena Anya have lesbian sex for 2 hours, Room in Rome, very good movie.
Like, as a feminist, I'm annoyed with this movie. As a sapphic, I'm kind of delighted, unfortunately.
I am no better than a man, that cleavage.
I don't agree with that. I don't even agree with it when it's a man. You are allowed to... kill the Catholic priest in your head. You are allowed to look on someone with lust in your heart.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie.
I look upon with lust in my heart, if only for the sweater. It's a damn good turtleneck.
So this does not have something for everyone. Since I mentioned Love Lies Bleeding earlier, where are my muscle ladies?
Fair. You know what? We needed a lady werewolf.
We need more lady werewolves in general, just as a general principle.
So we're gonna watch Ginger Snaps next, huh?
Well, yeah, I love Ginger Snaps, but that shouldn't be the only one.
There's also Dog Soldiers.
Is Velcro our next beat?
They have like one scene where he like shows up the castle to kill Anna, and then
Van Helsing his thing.
It's really weird that they're like playing it as a reveal. Even when I was a kid, I feel like I just sort of instantly knew when he's got a new werewolf. Oh, that's Velkin.
Yeah, it has to be, right? Like, that just seems obvious. Like, I feel like all but maybe the people who have never seen a movie before would have gotten that.
I actually have something to say about the infiltration of the castle in the next scene when they're discovering all of the eggs, and Van Helsing says, oh yeah, they've been taking like 1 to 2 bodies for a couple of months, and I literally said, oh whoops, your complicity in vile systems has given you a much bigger problem!
Yeah.
So,
I'm not expecting to pull like serious themes out of this Van Helsing movie, and I don't think it's trying to get me to, but collective action would have solved this whole thing.
Death of the author.
I thought what was really interesting about that scene when her brother comes in and does his werewolf thing and he transforms and she doesn't run. I'm like, Anna, baby girl, run. And she doesn't.
I will admit, I do kind of fuck with him like crawling backwards up the wall.
Yes.
That kid kind of fucked.
My hot take for the film is for young 9-year-old me, dated CGI, whatever you want to call it, even though I think it's composited well.
It works. I decide.
These are still one of my favorite non-practical werewolf transformations. I like that they're just literally tearing the humanity off of themselves.
It's so cool.
It's a good vibe. It's very much like a CGI equivalent of what An American Werewolf in London was doing.
Yep.
And that's probably the best werewolf movie.
Oh, it's easily the best werewolf transformation of all time, for sure.
I'm going to go ahead and say, probably never covering it on here, so I'll just say this now. I saw An American Werewolf in London in, like, a cult movie night at one of my local art house theaters, and Rick Baker, the guy who did the makeup for that, his name in the credits got an ovation from the crowd.
Rick Baker, my beloved.
Guy fucking rules.
But, no, when Carl came in, it was like, why does it smell like wet dog in here? Like, I thought that was actually a really well done moment because it kind of broke the tension of the moment a little bit, but still kept that seriousness of like, oh God, her brother's a werewolf. She's not going to kill him. We have to go after him.
One of the undersold dynamics about this movie is Carl and Van Helsing's like immediate work together. Like the minute Van Helsing is like, it's a werewolf, he's already like, right, silver bullets, catch, and they're out the door going. Like that is truly the most undersold. Like that's the other thing is like Carl has the EV problem of he has no field experience. Like that's a pointed thing that like Van Helsing points out in the weaponsmith scene is that like he's pulling him into the field for the first time. But all of his nerd knowledge and all of his like weaponsmithing still allows him to go, right, I know exactly what you need, let's go. Carl is not saying no.
Carl's actually a lot of fun, and I do love that he keeps on emphasizing, I'm a friar, and therefore I can swear and fuck pretty ladies.
I will say that if I'm a studio executive in 2004, and this movie, it came in over its budget, but not really enough as much as it needed to get. And I'm like, okay, do I greenlight a sequel? The fact that David Wenham and Hugh Jackman have decent buddy cop chemistry, you could probably wring a couple sequels out of that. Like,
Yeah.
I can see it, and there are worse buddy cops that have made it to 3 movies.
Jesus Christ, there are so much worse.
And again, it's like, I am so about a monster hunting universe. Like, again, I have seen too many episodes of goddamn Supernatural. But, like, you could do a solid little trilogy of monster hunting movies with these two. I would fuck with that so severely. Sometimes art comes out before your time, and you don't get to become its core audience like it should have been. Because again, you hand this movie to the right 13-year-old, it rewrites their brain chemistry.
It's kind of like Sabrina with the Mummy 2017. It ruined her brain chemistry.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say,
9 times!
And it's weird to me, like, all these, like, they always go to the classic monsters because, well, Dracula's based off of a book, Frankenstein's based off of a book, werewolves are oddly a creature that more came into its prominence via film. Even though there was, like, historical, there's not, like, the werewolf book. There's, like, the werewolf folklore. It's always weird to me that they stick to those. It's like, where's the creature of the Black Lagoon? Like, if we're trying to do the universal things, it's like, are we just going to get Shape of Water? Are we, where's the Invisible Man? Where's the person pontificating that even the moon's afraid of him?
Right?
I mean, I figure, I mentioned before we started that they kind of, like, ran out of Universal monsters after one movie. Like, what else they have left? They have the Invisible Man, they have Creature from the Black Lagoon. What, are they going to have Van Helsing fight the Phantom of the Opera?
Please, 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 please.
I mean, ironically, Hugh Jackman was not able to be in Phantom of the Opera because of this movie.
Though apparently he was cast in this movie because the director saw him in Oklahoma.
Shut the fuck up!
The director saw him in Oklahoma and was like, yeah, he's got the charisma to do it. Cast him!
I've been holding on to this piece of information, but apparently the guy who played Frankenstein played Judge Turpin in a production of Sweeney Todd.
Oh! So that's why this Frankenstein's a Bible thumper!
I don't know if it was an official production. I just remember hearing that when I was a kid. I was like, track.
Okay, that does track.
It is a very theatrical movie, which is one of the reasons why I feel like Hugh Jackman got cast, and it's one of the reasons why I think it's so disappointing that he's just doing Wolverine again.
Would this movie have been improved with a musical number?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes!
Where would you put it?
It's a musical.
You do what what basically Bollywood movies do, although Bollywood movies are often 3 hours, and you put the musical numbers into the action scenes. Come on.
That would rock.
Yes.
I would argue you do the At the Masquerade from Phantom and during the ballroom scene and have it be, the At the Ballet from Anastasia? Yeah. Everybody gets a verse of all of our key players going into that final confrontation when the musical number ends with the reveal at the mirror.
Well, honestly, at this point now, I'm thinking that maybe we just needed this to be an out-and-out musical.
Yeah.
Let Hugh Jackman sing! Please stop dehydrating this poor man and let him do a musical.
Besides Les Mis.
The Masquerade is a fascinating scene to me.
I love it.
It's a great scene, in isolation, because it makes the movie continue to follow the exposition action beat, because they need to exposit where Anna is and where they're stashing the monster. And it's eating up time that they don't have. And I was just sitting there going, like, as much as the Masquerade is great, if you cut it and put that time into character beats, you could just have them capture Frankenstein's monster then and there, and skip the whole Masquerade. So it's literally just wasting time.
It's kind of weird how they bothered to actually try to do a book-accurate Frankenstein's monster, but didn't really get him much time to develop as a character.
He's in the movie very little, and he's still better constructed than Anna.
Oh yeah.
But without the ballroom scene, you do not get the sick-ass mirror reveal, which is the vampire shot to end all vampire shots.
Yeah, like the ballroom scene, the vibes are immaculate.
And I think, hot take, the climax should have been at the ballroom.
Yeah,
the ball
100%.
should have been the climax.
That mirror shot made me feral.
I also will say,
I do fuck with some swashbuckling in my monster flick, actually.
Well, of course.
Again, the timing of the trapeze artist, this should have been the location of the climax. Because, like, that scene alone is very the 50s Errol Flynn Robin Hood. And I feel like if we had let Hugh Jackman swashbuckle it up as our final act.
Can I admit something to y'all? So
What?
I actually think that the thing you actually need to cut is the entire detour to bring Frankenstein's monster back to Rome, and then it doesn't actually go anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. That chase sequence, while it fucks, does not need to be there.
But also, like, what kind of struck me about this rewatch, and I don't know if I ever really, like, is the first time we learn that Dracula is supposedly locked in an icy prison from which there is no return. The scene where they figure out where he is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we keep Carl so disconnected from the rest of the plot, and Carl's the only one who's had the ability to learn this shit.
Carl's the only one with the brain cell.
It's so funny, because I was like, you could just have them have the showdown in Budapest, and you could still have the chase scene. You could still, like, have them go to try to intercept them when they're going to Budapest or whatever. And just, like, not go to the icy castle, because, you know, I didn't know that existed.
The Budapest plot sequence is from an earlier draft of the script, and it is a plot cul-de-sac and a half. However, the scenes we get out of it bang so hard that I don't necessarily want to cut it. I just think it should be the end of the movie.
It's just frustrating because on the one hand, logically, I'm aware this movie's a fucking mess and is really awful, but I'm having such a good time with it.
I'm cheering and clapping the entire time.
I am on a badass roller coaster ride through this whole thing.
The bit when the brother comes back to Dracula, I have to say that the imps, the little doer, the Jawas, the doers,
the turkey.
There is a book series that is near and dear to my heart called Cirque du Freak. And those look exactly how they describe the little people in that book. There are these little hodgepodge beings in that book that are controlled by the big villain, whatever. But they look exactly what they are described as in that, and it's influenced how I can read that book. I can't imagine them not looking like how they look like in this movie. And I know they have nothing in common, but something that I do like, or something that I think is funny, is that I don't know why Dracula keeps looking for bad conductors, or like he keeps strapping people to this like board, and just like maybe the 9th time I strike them with lightning it will work, and like he keeps inventing or trying to find like more like resilient things. It's like, well, I tried it with a guy, but he turned into ash. Okay, I'm gonna try his son, but I'm gonna turn into a werewolf first. Yeah.
Nothing makes a sense in this movie. And you know what? If you want to describe this whole movie badly, you could say that, this is a polycule that's trying so desperately to have children.
And I will say that if what they were going for was that since vampires are bereft of life and death cannot create life, if their plan was to hire Dr. Frankenstein to invent the spark of life and then use lightning and that weird device to induce an artificial spark of life into his progeny, I can kind of see the linkage between, like, if he can't make it, or if he can't create the territory of God or whatever, then we'll make science instead, and the artificial sweetener still tastes like sugar.
If you're having trouble finding your god complex, store-bought is fine.
It's extremely funny how they like mention over and over that they really needed Dr. Frankenstein to do this, and now that he's dead they can't. I'm just sitting there going like, hey man, why'd you just fucking straight up murder him then?
And I think that falls under Dracula hubris, where, the sort of classic, like, who needs him? And then it's like, oh shit, I did need him? Fuck, okay, I guess I gotta make do.
In fairness, Frankenstein was out and out refusing to build him the babies, but still, yeah. And like, really, Doc, you can support literally creating life out of a bunch of dead corpses, but you draw the line at baby vampires? It doesn't really make much sense.
Oops, my bad.
I will say, everything about the ballroom scene is fucking fantastic until they're dragging the monster in and he's shouting Bible quotes. And I'm like, the monster is a Paradise Lost fucker, first and foremost.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I fuck with the swashbuckling monster movie. Less so with the brimstone monster preacher. Like, I get it, but the monster read Paradise Lost, not the OG Bible.
Yeah, like, his whole thing is that he has been rejected by not only his own father, but just by God in general, it seems.
But I will say that I do love the monster's mini arc of being called friend. That's fun. That's cute.
And it's also a really nice callback to the 1930s film.
The Frankenstein in this film is always what I think of when I think of, like, melodrama, in terms of, like, the way that he plays his suffering is just so deeply funny to me, because there's not, like, a line read in this film that he doesn't go, why? It's like every second is agony for him.
It's much like Dracula. He is giving it his all. I did extremely love how when he gets put in the carriage in chains, he's like, if you value blah 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 blah, you would. He's like asking them to kill him to save humanity or whatever. And then later on, you know, he's hanging off the side of the thing. He's like, I want to leave. It's like, where did that character arc happen?
I mean, certain death situations make you say, "Oh fuck, shit, maybe I don't want to die."
You know, that's
It
so
would be
valid.
extremely funny
Yeah.
if they were like, you need to kill me to save humanity, and someone's like, okay, bang.
But what are these chainsaw throwing stars? And why do I want my next D&D character to have a set so badly?
That makes me think of, like, I actually wrote down, I don't think the electric chain buzzsaw thing had been invented yet. I went back at Notre Dame. I don't think the electric buzzsaw had been invented yet, but I'm gonna go with it because rule of cool and the steampunk vibe is immaculate.
Listen,
so I'm not
The
gonna
movie is
complain.
rule of cool.
Listen, this is a theoretical Vatican-sanctioned organization that has invented both the Gatling gun and machine gun crossbows. Chainsaw throwing stars I am not putting out of their wheelhouse.
No, I was just talking about the buzzsaw that he uses to get out from under the bell.
Yeah, it's the same weapon. It's the
is it? Okay.
It's technically a throwing star.
Part of the thing that strikes me about this movie, in retrospect, is the knowledge that they were planning on making this a cross-media franchise. Those fingerprints are all over the movie. This movie had a video game that released the same day it came out. Remember, even in 2004, video games take a long time to make. So, like, a lot of stuff in there feels very much like stuff that is tied into the video game. You know, they show you the Gatling gun, but they never use it. Well, they use it in the video game. The Dwergy don't really do anything, but they're a good video game generic enemy. And yeah, the buzzsaw throwing stars feel very video gamey.
I'm obsessed with them, and I want my next D&D character to have a set.
One thing I will also say is, as underdeveloped and undercooked the Van Helsing and Anna love story was, I have to say, the moment where his werewolf self is holding her dead body, because, oh yeah, she dies, like, off screen, basically, but when she's holding...
She gets hooked into a wall, and the movie decides to remember physics exists.
Yeah, for once. Why? But anyway, like, he's...
Because we gotta fridge a woman!
His werewolf self holding her dead body while howling... That does fuck severely. It does fuck severely, even though I'm pissed. Because I remember Callie was like, no, she's not dead. No, she's not dead. Oh, wait, she's dead?
It is extremely funny that the only time being thrown into a wall kills the character is when they're being thrown into the fridge.
Why the fuck is she dead?
Because we gotta have a love interest for the next movie. If we were doing this like...
She's right fucking there!
No. Callie, darling, dearest. This is a Bond scenario. We gotta kill the girl every movie, or otherwise make her a villain to get her out of the picture, so we can have a love interest next movie. Duh.
Boo.
That's obviously. That's obviously where this was going. No,
Yeah.
But also, that ending was fucking stupid.
It was a very bad ending. My bigger critique about the Anna Van Helsing romance is at least like she initiated the kiss, but Jesus Christ, I wish it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Why did he drug her at the beginning?
Part of what makes this movie fascinating in retrospect is that it's kind of like 2004 was an in-between spot for a lot of big, broad film franchises. You mentioned James Bond. It was in the dead period between Die Another Day and Casino Royale. This is in a weird spot for franchise filmmaking. The Lord of the Rings just wrapped. We're trending much more serial going forward. You know, I mentioned James Bond because James Bond movies in 2006 grew continuity and like overarching stories.
Which is not something that James Bond should have.
Precisely, but that's not the point. Pirates of the Caribbean, in between movies 1 and 2, switched over from, hey, let's have an adventure, to now we're doing a big overarching story across multiple movies. So did The Matrix. So this is a moment where I feel like people felt they needed to be setting stuff up for the sequels going forward. So the Archangel Gabriel stuff doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't actually matter. Like they drop it several times. Like it's also extremely funny to me that they spent their entire lives trying to find Dracula's castle via the ice portal. Unclear on how they got back out of there, but never mind.
Very carefully.
It's Tuesday. Don't worry about it.
But the reason they couldn't find their way there is that the Vatican just had the key the whole time and never bothered to call them up.
Again, we were gonna find out in movie 5 that the Vatican Monster Hunting Guild was actually the bad guy the whole fucking time.
What's been messing up everything? It's been the Vatican all along. But yes, as much as you are right, that again, this whole ending makes no sense, but goddamn, the vampire and werewolf fight.
Must a movie be good? Is it simply not enough to watch some of the best vampire and werewolf designs beat the snot out of each other in some physics-defying combat?
That was pretty great.
I also, they drop very, 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 very late in the game, as in like 2 minutes before the fight happens, that, the only way to kill Dracula is to have a werewolf do it.
Right?
Which, the mechanics of werewolves in this movie are so weird. So, Velkin attacks them, like, the night before his first full moon. Then, Hugh Jackman gets bit, and there's 2 nights before his first full moon. Is the implication that a month happened in that cut? In the, travel to Budapest?
It's one of those extra special months that have 2 full moons. It's fine.
I like the fight for the simple reason that, you think, okay, werewolf is going to fight Dracula, that's fucking rad. I like that the fight is hysterically one-sided. Like, it's not like, maybe Dracula will win. No, like, Wolfman Hugh Jackman is just beating the shit out of Drac the entire fight.
As is deserved.
It is truly some glorious. And again, the design of this here werewolf fucks so severely.
It fucks in every way. As I mentioned about Azog having abs, that werewolf has abs. Someone on your design team is a furry, I'm sorry to say, or a monster fucker.
Pokenostos! That Venn diagram is a stack of pancakes.
It is.
The funnier thing about that werewolf design is giving the werewolf a shink.
Yeah,
giving the werewolf a Wolverine shink.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have done that.
I think it's hilarious.
That shot. There are several moments involving the Hugh Jackwolf that are just deeply goofy in a way that I don't know if the movie is working it. There's several moments in there that are really goofy but that work. I really like when Hugh Jackman produces the crucifix and Dracula's just yelling and then just tosses it aside. Like that shit's hysterical.
Yeah, he grabs it and it melts in his hands because, I guess he's not afraid of the crucifix, but it doesn't like him very much.
Every vampiric property must settle on how it wants to answer the sunlight question and the holy item question. The holy item question has been very funnily answered because it popped up again on Twitter this week. Someone doing the hey, what if you have a vampire that doesn't believe in Christianity? How do you deal with that? And the best answer
You're fucked.
No, the best answers so far are A, it is not specifically about Christianity, it is about any symbol that you believe in strongly. So watching clips of people killing vampires with a hammer and sickle and communism.
Yes!
And killing and warding off a vampire with a rapper style tag that says your name because you believe in yourself so much that it wards a vampire off. Or
I can't relate to that concept. That wouldn't work. I'd be like, sure.
Or the being human example where holy symbols do not hurt if they are wielded by someone you love.
Oh.
Or you have the Castlevania answer, which is, vampires' eyes got fucked up when they developed as predators. You stick a big geometric shape in their face and they get confused.
I had this when people were like, the reason mirrors don't reflect vampires is because mirrors used to be made of silver. No, fuck you. That's my answer to... Vampires aren't real. So when someone creates rules for vampires, it's not reflective of a real life thing. It is your influence as a writer. Why do crosses hurt Dracula? Because the writer of that story was Christian, and that's how that worked.
Yep.
So I really just feel like arguing the reason behind it is really just down to what your priorities as a writer are. And since Christianity is not some people's priority anymore, they want an explanation for why it works. And that's the premise that because you believe in it is at least an interesting one. I just really liked that bit where Dracula just shrugs it off. It's funny.
The Dracula werewolf scene also has, I don't know if you want to call it a continuity error or something they just threw in at the last minute, or I don't know how it happened. So obviously throughout the film he's been calling him Gabriel because apparently he's the left hand of God and an avenging angel or whatever the hell. But he's like going through this whole monologue. It's like, oh, what a curse, what a terrible thing. I just want my children. I just want the continuation of my race. And then he pulls up his right hand and he's like, and also the return of my ring. And his ring finger is like gone. But at no point prior to this scene is his ring finger gone in the entire film.
I think the implication, and I could be wrong, but I think the implication isn't that his ring finger is gone, it's that he's doing this. But it doesn't read very well. I also thought he was missing his ring finger the first time I saw it. And I just went, whatever, he's holding his ring finger down, it's fine.
Or I guess the implication is that back when Gabriel last murdered him? But that, again, we've never had any indication of that throughout this movie. That means nothing to us.
They have brought up the ring before.
But that's the thing.
Because the ring has the same sigil as the secret painting in the tower and the giant map and the fragment that's on the giant map.
That's the thing, like, I threw a screenshot of it and threw it into the Discord because, like, I could see that as the read, that, like, he was just trying to, like, make it more obvious. He was, like, talking about, like, something that was gone, but, like, that's probably how they did the shot. They just had him bend their ring finger in, but, the way that it's shown, it's like, no, that finger's gone.
I will also say, the only other explanation I can give for that continuity error is if I could regenerate my fingers or whatever, I would also pull them off to make points.
Yeah, I would too.
See, if you want him to do that, he's got to pull it off on screen to do the bit.
But,
just pull off all your fingers but the middle one to really hammer it home.
But it's one of those things, it's like, even at the tender age of 9, it's one of those things where I've rewatched this movie several times, specifically skipping to scenes that I know Dracula's in to, like, look at his hands and, like, is it anywhere at all?
I love you, Justin. I love you.
And it's like, this was my origin story. This is how I realized to look at continuity, I guess,
Yeah, everyone has that movie as a child where you step out of it, or like the piece of art where you step out of it and you're like, that could have been better.
The Notebook, weirdly enough. But anyway.
Avengers Age of Ultron.
Fuck that movie.
Avengers Age of Ultron.
Anyway.
It's probably Lost in Space for me.
And his face in the clouds. What the fuck was that?
Because now her family can go to heaven, Callie. Because Dracula is apparently dead for reals this time.
Except for when he inevitably comes back in the 5th sequel.
He's a good guy now.
He is our antagonist figure that we have reluctantly domesticated.
Yes.
Just like Jeffrey Rush in those pirate movies. I have connected the two dots.
You haven't connected shit.
They have the actor come back as a character named Delav Alucard.
Yeah.
Vlad Tepes.
And he's unrelated. Just he's nothing
It's
to do
just a
with
coincidence.
Just a coinky-dink.
But no, seriously. Even back then, you could have at least made it out of the clouds or something. Or like
No, it has to be vague and otherworldly to really solidify.
There's like a half beat before they see her face in the clouds where like you can hear like a whisper of her voice on the wind, and that's all you fucking need. That's it. That's all you need.
That's really
Honestly,
all
you don't
needed.
even need that. You should be going with the Darth Vader
funeral pyre.
Frame him.
The Mufasa.
Yeah.
Frame him in front of the fire and cut to the Ewok party, man.
Yeah, no, what's crazy is they didn't just do it once, they did it twice, as if they really wanted to hammer it into the dumb rubes in the audience, I guess.
It was a bad ending. It's a bad ending.
Bad.
There's another thing that I think the movie has that is goofy in a way that I don't think it has control over.
But yeah, wow, we really have gone full circle with this Monster Month. I mean, because at the end of this should have started a cinematic universe movie, we have our newly monstrous hero and his funny sidekick riding off into the sunset together, and we'll probably have to dodge the evil monster hunting organization while he is a monster fighting monsters. Why do these monsters endure to end our spooky month?
Insert my rant from earlier about how we kind of just want to huck them all into a treasure box and play with them like action figures. And they're at their best when we are not trying to give them cohesive plots. We are just doing a monster mash at a graveyard smash. Also, monster fucking. Also, as much as we want to love the monster, we are not immune to watching supernatural creatures be pure evil and watching them blow up into piles of goop.
Like, part of the reason why I think these particular monsters have endured is partly what River said. They are extremely malleable. You know, you can see the Invisible Man be a comedy movie directed by John Carpenter. You can see it be a genuinely harrowing movie about abuse. It's also proof that they can be extremely adaptable to whatever the current societal fear. You know, Dracula can be a fear of contagion. He can be a symbol of societal decadence. He can be a symbol of the predation of the upper class. Or he can be, you know, as I point out with Carmilla, he can be a sympathetic outsider. You can morph these monsters into whatever you want to make them about. Or you can pull a Guillermo del Toro and let the Fishman go to fucking town on you.
As is our right.
These archetypes, these ideas, or whatever you need them to be, they're a cool toolbox or toy box, whatever you feel like referring it to. Whatever you need them to be, you know, you have vampires like in this, where they're like basically cartoonish villains. You have Marvin, where they're basically helpless. You have that Udo Kier one where like they basically vomit the entire film. And the thing that is fun about this film is when you grab your entire toy box and throw it onto the floor and you just have your set designers go ham. You know, what if we make these little, like, guys? What if we make Igor look like he's made out of, like, a pile of other people's skin? What if you have a Frankenstein who is, like, steampunk? You know, just throw anything at the wall.
What if you cast a bunch of actors you wouldn't kick out of bed?
Exactly. What if you have a film of hot people doing cool things? You know, it's just like, no one's ever done this before, you know?
You fool, that'll never work.
The reason that these monster movies endure is because we see ourselves in them. Like, we see those toxic parts of ourselves, like, within these characters, wherever they may be. It's a mirror reflection of ourselves and the worst parts of ourselves, and allows us that opportunity to grow and become better people.
For sure. If you want to go the morality tale route, they could be that. Or, on the other hand, we can use them to say what society deems as monstrous and flawed doesn't necessarily have to be that way either. Like, there's also that school of thought. There's that school of adaptation. And it's becoming increasingly more common, of course, because us weirdos have got the keys to the storytelling kingdom a lot more these days.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
We can look at monsters now and make out sloppy style with them.
That too. But really, a lot of these creatures come from a much more restrictive time, whether it's the Victorian era or even the 1950s. And these monsters represented things that concerned those time periods a lot more than they really do now. Obviously, yes, these monsters are malleable, but also we could kind of look at them and be all, hey, maybe you're not as bad as my grandparents or whomever deemed you to be. Maybe there's room for you in a better society. Perhaps we will only become a better society once we shake off these restrictive ideas that there is a certain type of person or a certain type of being that is inherently monstrous. And I never want them to stop making different takes on Dracula or Frankenstein or Jekyll and Hyde.
Correct.
I want them to keep doing this because we always kind of learn something new about ourselves from everyone, I feel like.
I'm
Yep.
extremely excited for Lee Warnell's Wolfman and Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
Hell yes.
Those movies both look like they're gonna rip.
Final thoughts?
This movie is good.
Hugh Jackman,
Alira,
if you are
call
free
me.
on Thursday, I am also free.
River, how many people's numbers are you trying to get through my podcast?
Yes.
Alira, really any of the brides, but especially Alira, I'm getting a gay vibe there. Call me, we'll go out flying, maybe you can bite me.
Fire biter, yes.
I mean, you know, not for nothing. I feel like if you took Dracula and Alira and put them in modern day, they would very much be the, hey, we saw you from across the bar and we really liked your vibe.
Oh, 1,000%.
We love that. This movie is actually pretty good. I don't know why it gets all the hate that it does. It's fun. I had a fun time. I would watch it again.
I mean, I stand by my criticism. I think that it's very, very, very sloppy on the character front. Feels very rushed in a lot of ways, and it is very much a product of its time. But on the other hand, like, the only thing that keeps me from being like, it's a fun little short romp. It's not short. It's like, what is it? An hour and
2
and
hours.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
2 hours, 11 minutes.
That's too long for this. You cut 20 minutes.
I
from it.
needed more.
Okay, either cut 20 minutes from it or add 40 minutes of actual character work to it.
Listen, Ellie, we all have our flavor of trash. I think this is just Callie's flavor of trash.
100%.
The end point there is, but on the other hand, I did first watch it when I was in 14 and still mistakenly under the impression that my desire for Alira was not lesbian.
Oh.
It was a pretty formative movie for me. Does that mean it's good? No. The L Word was also very formative to me.
There are things that are good, there are things that are bad, there are things that are your favorite, and there are things that fundamentally shape your taste in media, and those don't always interact in the right ways.
My favorite movie has an extended sequence where a woman fucks a mermaid.
Yep. It's great.
Would that be my favorite movie if I hadn't seen Van Helsing? Probably not.
You know what? If you have never watched this because of its bad reputation, give it a chance this Halloween season.
Get some popcorn, get some drinks, grab a couple of friends.
Be spooky.
Wonder if it's going to awaken anything in you.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna awaken something in you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a
It reminded me I'm gay.
Well, the beauty
I forget that sometimes.
As I keep on telling you, the beauty of you being non-binary is that no matter what, it is gay.
Correct.
Give this a chance. Like, if nothing else, you'll probably have a good time with how trashy it is. This is a roller coaster of a movie. Nothing more, nothing less. Who's got stuff to plug?
You can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, Blue Sky, all the social medias of the socials that do the socialing.
Editor Jasmine here. What Callie is about to advertise has changed its dates to November 23rd and November 30th at 7 p.m. Central Time. So just keep that in mind.
You can find me in a TTRPG live stream based in a Regency era monsters, vampires, werewolves, Jekyll Hyde, all that kind of good stuff. That's going to be on Twitch, and the link will be in the bio. And I'm going to be plugging this book from someone that we know called But How Are You Really by Ella Dawson, where a burned out bisexual confronts old demons, her estranged chosen family, and the ex she maybe shouldn't have walked away from when she attends her 5-year college reunion. If you are a burnt out millennial who is feeling lost and alone in the workforce and just not sure where to go in life, please go check out and read But How Are You Really by Ella Dawson. It is a great book. We'll be supporting a debut author, so go check out that book from your local bookstore.
Or library.
Library, bookstore, wherever.
You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Dreams Rebel. We're in the middle of hockey season, y'all. Be prepped. Though I'm less hockey on Blue Sky because the NHL has not moved to Blue Sky yet, but I am hockey on Twitter. You can find me at Letterboxd at punk_skeleton. And you can find me on WordPress at filmlion.wordpress.com, though that URL is eventually changing once I get my actual website underway, because apparently my father decided that I needed a real website. And I am also the host of The Straights Aren't All Right, a podcast in which I get a bunch of queers together and ask, are the straights, like, okay, after making them watch cis hetero rom-coms? The next episode will not be out by the time this goes up because I had to move the date around, but c'est la vie. First episode is up, but you can go listen to it.
Are the straights okay in this movie, River?
Absolutely not. The straights are not all right because Anna needed a female writer and an actual goddamn character. The only thing I could say about it is, again, at least she is the one who initiates the kiss, and you can buy off that it is some sort of, like, last minute, oh dear God, I'm actually confronting death for the first time in my natural life, like, with some seriousness, and I'm fighting monsters against somebody who isn't my sibling. But you know, and also, like, if you have the opportunity to kiss young Hugh Jackman, kiss young Hugh Jackman.
Well, yeah, for sure. Anyway.
You can find me on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedo, and on Twitter, Blue Sky, Medium, and Letterboxd at LSR42. I'm trying to watch a movie from this year each week and post about it on Letterboxd. I have no idea if I'm going to succeed for the rest of the year from November on. And you can also find me on my podcast, The Biggest Night in Podcasting, where we watch a randomly determined Oscar-winning film and discuss it. And while Van Helsing was definitely not eligible for this, if you want to talk monster fucking, eventually I'm going to roll The Shape of Water, so look forward to that.
Let's see. My plug for this week is a piece of tapestry that, when added to a wall, is a portal to Dracula's ice castle.
You know what? That's going to be useful for future reference, right, Callie? and
Yep.
It is debatable whether or not I am actually Carmela at this point. We're out of character.
Anyway.
I suppose
Well,
I should also do that one for realsies. I got a real one for once.
Let's go.
If you don't despise my voice, I was the narrator in a recent table read of an adaptation of The Vampire by J.R. Palash.
Everyone in this podcast is involved.
Everyone in this podcast is on screen except me, where I am the AD.
So, if you desperately want to hear us not talk about vampires, but be associated with vampires,
and make fun of Byron.
And make fun of Byron.
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Faye Riviera. You could also follow the show on Twitter at IER Podcast. And if you would like to help us reach the next chapter of our story, please consider leaving us a review or rating us on the podcatcher of your choice, telling all of your friends and family about us. And even better, if you have room in your wallets, please consider donating to our Patreon, our Ko-Fi page, or just the support the show link below. And that closes out Monster Month 2. Sorry the ending came a little late, folks. This ended up being a harder edit than expected. But now, for the next several episodes, in honor of an upcoming film release that is very dear to me, we're going to be traveling somewhere over the rainbow. We hope you'll join us in the magical land of Oz. And remember, stories gain power in each retelling. And you know what? I know this is usually the part where we just read the endings of the stories, but you know what? Fuck it. Dance along if you can or want to. Hit it, Bori!
Now everything's cool, Drax a part of the band, and my Monster Mash is the hit of the land. For you, the living, this mash was meant to. When you get to my door, tell them Boris sent you.
Then you can mash.
Then you can Monster Mash.
The Monster Mash.
And do my graveyard smash.
Then you can mash.
You'll catch on in a flash.
Then you can mash.
Then you can Monster Mash.